As I was saying, in 1976, Christian leaders established Christian Association of Nigeria as the umbrella body, as the association of all Christians. But later they realized that there are certain issues that cannot handle, such as politics, as well as social issues that affect Christians. So they set up Christian Social Movement of Nigeria. There are 5 church groups that constitute the Nigerian church. Before you can say the Nigerian church is making a statement, all those 5 church groups must agree they represent the Nigerian church. So the only organization that they have set up to represent Christian political interest is the Christian Social Movement of Nigeria. And it was set up in 2001. For some reasons that we cannot go into, it was left comatose for a few years, but revived in 2014. And subsequently, I was asked by the chairman of the governing board, Elder Solomon Asemota, SAN, to be the CEO as well as the executive secretary to drive the Christian political agenda. There is a lot of work that we have to do. And the major problem that we have had over the years, why Christians have become political underdogs in a country in which they built, in a country in which they are the majority in terms of population, in a country in which Christians constitute the largest group of professionals, skilled workers, technocrats, scientists, educated elites, in a country in which the wealth is in the Christian areas, the oil, the gas, the seaport, and the bulk of the arable land is in the Christian territory. Despite all this, Christians are political underdogs. They are politically marginalized, they are politically disadvantaged, and as of today, the instrument of state is being used with impunity in an attempt to exterminate Christians from Nigeria. This is the reality of the situation. Now, the reason why this has been happening and it will continue to happen is simply one word: disunity. The day the Christians unite, that is the day Nigeria will be transformed into paradise on earth. But so long as Christians remain disunited, they will continue to suffer untold and unimaginable damages. Therefore, the theme of this meeting, Roadmap to Christian Unity for Good Governance, is fundamental to solving any political crisis in Nigeria. We must understand how did the church become disunited and what is the roadmap to regain unity, particularly political unity. Now, very briefly, I will want to take us to the foundation of the Nigerian church. Disunity did not start with us. It started with the colonialists. When they came to Nigeria, they did not bring church. They brought denominations. The Anglicans were reporting to England. The Catholic, they were reporting to Rome. The Methodist was reporting to Wales. The Baptist was reporting to USA. The Lutheran was reporting to Germany. And they did not have the same structure. So they had developed an atmosphere of competition, because each one has to report to a different headquarters. In the process, competition setting. After independence, and the colonialists started living one after the other, they handed over the leadership of Christianity to Nigerians. Indigenous Christians took over. Rather than immediately close ranks, they built on that foundation of division. So the church grew in Nigeria with the Catholic seeing itself different from the Protestants. Then among the Protestants, the Anglican saw itself different from the churches started by the indigenous Nigerians. And then the Baptist was also in another corner. And they classify some as Aladura, and classify some as Sele, and call some CAC. And everybody was in a corner doing his own thing. In 1965, the Christians in the North realized that Christianity faced a serious threat. And under the late Ambassador Jolly Tanko Yusuf, they formed the Northern Christian Association in 1965. The Christians in the rest of the country refused to join. Each one still stayed in his own corner until 1976, when an incident occurred in Dodan Barracks, in which General Obasanjo, as the military head of state, invited religious leaders, because the government was going to introduce recitation of the pledge, and they wanted mission schools to go along with the plan. So when the Muslim and the Christians got to Dodan Barracks, Obasanjo said the late Musa Yar'Adua should conduct the meeting. When the meeting was going to start, Yar'Adua called a Muslim cleric to say the opening prayer. When the meeting ended, Yar'Adua called another Muslim cleric to say the closing prayer. At that point, the Christians kicked and said, "You cannot do that. You can't call a Muslim to start. You can't call a Muslim to close the meeting." Yar'Adua answered. He said, "I don't know which one of you I will call, and you will not quarrel amongst yourselves." At that point, the church leaders realized, so we are so divided, even the unbelievers know. So they headed straight for the nearest Christian installation after the meeting, which was the Catholic Secretariat. And on that day, Christian Association of Nigeria was born, with the theme that they all may be one. So it was circumstance that forced them to form Christian Association of Nigeria. It was the circumstance, what happened that day. Even after they formed CAN, to still get the Christian unity still became a problem. Most of the denominations are competing against each other, and that affects Christian consensus building when it comes to politics and negotiation for power. That is one problem that is still there. There is a lot more one could say about this, but there is no time. We could have solved this problem in 2015, but some forces within the church did not agree. They made it worse. We tried again in 2019. In fact, I wrote the National Assembly of CAN Personally, I wrote them on the platform of CSMN in 2019 that they were about to take a step that is not in the interest of Christianity in Nigeria. They ignored it. And we are all seeing the consequence today. Then there is now the issue of the deliberate political division of Christians. Because there are two issues we are dealing with here. The first one is the foundational problem of disunity within the church itself. That apart from the foundational issue, then there is the external one that is political, that was done deliberately by the British. And this started in 1913, a year before the amalgamation, which was in 1914. At a colonial dinner in 1913, Lord Harcourt, after whom Port Harcourt City was named, made some remarks and said, I just paraphrase, that the British government has released the well-behaved, please note the word, the well-behaved northern youth, has released him from the strings of the treasury. Because before 1914, Britain was the one funding the Northern Protectorate. The amalgamation was actually done for the benefit of the North, so that the surplus money from the South can be used to fund the deficit that is in the North, which the British Treasury has been offsetting for years, and they didn't want to continue to pay that money. While the South had much more than enough money, the North did not have. So he said they have released the North from the strings of the Treasury of Britain and is about to undertake a wedding, a marriage with a lady of substance in the South. They refer to the South as the rich woman that the well-conducted youth in the North is going to marry. And that in 1914, Lord Lugard will solemnize the marriage. So, at the back of the British, the North is the husband, the South is the wife. At the back of the Northerner, the average Northerner, at their mind, is that they are the husband who control the resources of their wife. So if you see the impunity with the Northerner approaches the treasury and the resources of the North, that is the root. So in 1914, the well-conducted youth of the North was given one wife, which was the South. In 1939, his wives were increased to 2. Because in 1939, the South was divided into East and West, bringing about the politics of tribalism in the South, while the North remained one entity. In 1963, they increased his wives to 3 by carving out Midwestern region from the West. The North, over the years, therefore, has been playing what is called harem politics. Politics of the harem, using one wife against the other, knocking the head of the Igbo and the Yoruba and the Niger Delta. Now, those are the main Christian areas. And the 3 of them, rather than cooperate as one, they are contesting and competing against each other. As long as that competition is in place, Christians will not have political unity. And enough will have political unity. Now, that is the background to what we are going to be talking about in looking at the roadmap. I have started by giving us a synopsis of the problem that is on the ground, where the problem came from. We now look at the roadmap. How do we come out of it? The first thing in this roadmap, the Bible says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." There are many of our Christian elites, church leaders, who are not aware of where we are coming from and how we got to where we are today and why things are the way that they are. Our greatest problem as Christians in Nigeria is the harem politics. And they play it skillfully. If you look at how the politics is played, in one election they dance to the East. And they get the East to support them. And the East forms alliance with them. And then they leave the West in the cold as the opposition. Then, at the next election, they go to the West. They form alliance with the West, which was how APC was able to come in. They formed alliance with the West. How was NPN able to come in? They formed alliance with the East. How was NPC able to get power? They formed alliance with the East. How was Buhari able to come back in 2019? They formed alliance with the West. In fact, in 2019, you will notice that they played the card very well that head or tail, they win. They took the two major parties and they have two northerners there. Then they took a westerner as the vice president for one and took easterner as the vice president for the other. So whichever way it tilts. So you will discover that in the 2019, the East supported a totally different party. The West supported a totally different party. And they are still in power. Now the solution is for the East and the West to join forces together. The day the East and the West form synergy, that is the day the political history of Nigeria will be rewritten. And the only force that is capable of doing that are the Christians. Now, if Christians do not understand and quickly begin to work on Christian unity, they will remain political underdogs until genocide will be used to wipe all of them out. Therefore, the first roadmap is knowledge. 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 The average Nigerian elite does not understand the issue at stake. One thing we have set out to do at CSMN and National Christian Elders Forum is to educate and enlighten Nigerians to understand what is the problem with this country. Right now, Nigeria is not playing politics of ideology. It is not playing politics of competency. It is not playing politics of tribalism. That one ended with Zik, Awolowo, and Sardauna. Right now, Nigeria is playing politics of religion. It is politics of religion. And the earlier Christians realized that they must build their political base on their faith In which case, it does not matter whether you are Yoruba, or you are Igbo, or you are Birom, or you are Bachama, or you are Kalabari. The only thing that matters is you are a Christian. And then, on that basis, every Christian in Nigeria will support you, irrespective of where you come from. But we need understanding, and we need education. And those who understand this issue have to move very fast and educate, particularly the elites, because they are so argumentative. The Christian elites, they are so argumentative. And most of them are politically correct. We need to change that. Nigeria was formed as a democratic country, democracy. That was what Awolowo and Azikiwe signed for. A liberal democracy country based on parliamentary system. Gradually, over the years, there has been incursion of another ideology competing with democracy. And that incursion was institutionalized in 1999 Constitution with the introduction of Sharia ideology into the Constitution of Nigeria. Now, Sharia and democracy are antithetical. They are back to back. They are not the same. They face the opposite direction. But today, in the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution, Sharia is mentioned 73 times. Grand Qadi, the Sharia judge, is mentioned 54 times. Islam is mentioned 28 times. Muslim is mentioned 10 times. There is no single mention of Jesus Christ. No single mention of church. No single mention of Christian. No single mention of Christianity in the Nigerian Constitution. So, constitutionally, you are saying Nigeria is an Islamic state, while also constitutionally, you are saying Nigeria is a democratic state. That is the conflict of ideologies. Every crisis that we have in Nigeria today stems from that conflict. See, the problem of Nigeria is not corruption. Corruption is not our problem. The problem is not mediocrity. It is not our problem. It is not insecurity. It is not nepotism. It is not clannish mentality. The problem is the conflict between Sharia and democracy. The day we resolve it, that is the day we start having peace. And there are forces in Nigeria, because they benefit from it, who will do everything possible to make sure that the conflict remains in place. And eventually, Sharia should supplant democracy. Unfortunately, the people who handed power over to the Islamists were Christian leaders. They did it in 2015. They did it in 2019. Despite clear prophetic warnings from God that this is not the way to go, they did it. And we are all seeing the consequence today. Now, to back what I'm saying about Sharia incursion in the Constitution, I'm going to read from 3 legal luminaries in Nigeria. The first one who made comment on this issue, incidentally, was a Muslim from the north, the late Justice Mohammed Bello. There was to be a conference of lawyers to look into this issue, of the constitutionality of having Sharia in Nigerian sovereign document. And Justice Bello had prepared this paper. The night before the conference, Muslim radicals went to meet him where he slept, and they put a knife to his throat. I'm telling you a true story of what happened. They put a knife to his throat and told him, if you dare go to that conference and read the paper that you have prepared, you are gone. That was how the conference failed. He did not appear. He did not attend. It had to be called off. But the paper had already been released. I will give a quote from what Justice Mohammed Bello wrote. I quote, Section 38, subsection 1 of the Constitution ensures for every person the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including freedom to change his religion or belief. Whereas, under Sharia, reader, which is change of religion under Sharia, is a capital offense. Consequently, the offense of reader is inconsistent with Section 38, subsection 1, and by virtue of Section 1 is unconstitutional. That is a definite statement from late Justice Mohammed Bello. It is unconstitutional. You cannot have Sharia inside the Constitution. It's unconstitutional. The second legal luminary, Professor Ben Nwabweze, he said, and I quote, "The conclusion is thus inescapable that the prohibition in Section 10 of the Constitution stamps with an indelible taint of unconstitutionality the Sharia criminal law, whether in its original form as contained in the Quran and the Sunnah, or in a codified form to be enacted by the National Assembly or a State House of Assembly." Unquote. I quote the third legal luminary, Mr. Solomon Asemota, SAN. He said, and I quote, "It is also very clear that Sharia cannot be enforced as state law, which was why the Sardauna took the trouble to ensure the passage of the Penal Code and Code of Criminal Procedure in 1960, which has the following features. A, it was applicable to everybody in northern Nigeria. B, it was internationally accepted. And above all, C, it was Quran compliant. If the above is the correct state of the two laws, then there is need to return Sharia to the status it was before 1975, civil and personal law." Unquote. Now, legally, there is no basis for Sharia inside the Constitution of Nigeria, but it is there. And there are 12 states in Nigeria today that have adopted Sharia criminal law. It is unconstitutional. But it is on this basis now that Nigeria is being run. For your information, Nigeria is not being run today as a democratic country. It is being run as a Sharia country. That is why there is this flagrant violation of Section 14, subsection 3 of the Constitution, the federal principal character. And every major appointment now belongs to Muslims from the north. That is Sharia. That is not democracy. Now, Christians need to understand primarily that Nigeria is playing politics of religion. So they should stop being politically correct. This is no time to be apologetic. This is no time to say, let's be broad-minded. No, this is the time to insist that we are going to stand on our faith. That is point number one. That's the first roadmap. We must enlighten and educate our people to understand the issues. Because if they do not understand the issues, you cannot mobilize them. In 2023, or whenever there's going to be a change of government, Christians are still going to give their votes and their support and their allegiance to Sharia sponsors. And Sharia is not in the interest of Nigeria. That is roadmap number one. Number two, we must strengthen Christian structures. We must deliberately build Christian structures to strengthen Christian political unity. You see, as a consequence of point number one, lack of understanding, we are in a big mess today. Because all the plans were made and ready and approved by 2015. God had enabled us to do a lot of work under Pastor Ayo Orisejafo. He understood the issues. And a strategy document had been provided, prepared, and approved by NEC of CAN for implementation. Then his tenure ended, and another set of people took over who have no idea and they were not willing to learn. That strategy document was not implemented. That's why we are in disarray, because you cannot engage these issues without a plan. You must have a credible plan of action. That credible plan of action was not implemented. I will talk a little bit about the trust fund later if I have some time available. Why we need to raise funds. In the past 3 years, we lost 180 billion naira, billion Christians, that was meant for Christian advocacy, intervention, and political unity. 180 billion, B for ball. Because Christian leaders do not understand. And every attempt to explain to them, they became offended. Now, we need to build Christian structures deliberately to forge unity. Let me explain why. Nigeria is made up of 389 ethnic nationalities. 389. Only 3 of those 389, only 3, Hausa, Fulani, Kanuri, they formed political unity on the basis of their religion, Islam. Now, the 3 ethnic groups are different. They have different languages. They have different cultures. They have different history. But when it comes to politics, the 3 of them are the same. There is no difference. They forge political unity on the basis of their religion. The remaining 386 ethnic nationalities are mostly Christians. They could not unite because they are playing politics on the basis of their tribe and their ethnicity. So we have a gross imbalance in which 3 now dominate 386. What the 386 need to realize now is what is going on and forge their own unity based on their religion, Christianity. Once the 386 ethnic nationalities agree and they form their own political unity, of course, not all of them are Christians. Some, there are mixtures. I hope you will understand that. But majorly, they are Christians. When you look at South-South, it is Christian. Southeast, it is Christian. Middle Belt, it is mostly Christian. Southwest, it is majority Christian. If they form their own unity based on their religion, then they will take over power, restructure the country, reorganize Nigeria, and things will begin to work. So, roadmap number 2, there must be deliberate building of Christian structures to strengthen unity. Number 3, the roadmap. Number 3, we must encourage and promote laity political leadership. The laity, Christian professionals. For many years, the Christian political leadership was given to the clergy. The clergy was endorsing political candidates. The clergy was dictating the pace, and they couldn't manage it. They cannot manage it because by the structure of the denominations, they are incapable of building unity. I was at a conference of the Catholic Church in 2018, and I told them that, look, take a group of Christians from Aladura, from Sele, from Catholic Church, from Anglican, from Pentecostal, from Methodist. Take all those different Christians and put them in a fellowship. For example, Full Gospel. You will discover that all of them will work as one. You may even discover that in Full Gospel, the president will be Catholic. The vice president could be Anglican. The treasurer could be Pentecostal. The financial secretary could be from Cherubim and Seraphim. And all of them will work together. They will pray together. They will contribute funds together. They will execute programs together. You wouldn't know the difference at the fellowship. The moment those same Christians leave Full Gospel, for example, they leave the fellowship and they return to their denominations, division starts. Once they get back to the denomination, then they remember that they are Catholics. And Catholics does not talk with this. Catholics does not relate to that. Catholic does not do this. Then they remember that, we are Anglicans, so. Then they remember that we are Pentecostals. Then they remember that we are Aladura. The moment they get back to the churches, when they return during the week to the fellowships, they forget all about that division. They work together as one. So I told them at the conference that seeing the situation as it is, hand over leadership to the laity leaders because they are able to build unity. The church leaders are incapable of building church unity. And that statement, I stand to be corrected. If anybody can prove it wrong, let the person come out and come and prove it wrong. The reason why the churches, why Christians are not united is because of the division in the denominations. Christians don't have anything against each other. And they prove it in Full Gospel. They prove it in Wailing Women International. They prove it in Classfund. They prove it in Capro. In all the fellowships and groups, Christians prove they have no problem with one another. But once they go back to their denominations, problem starts. Division breaks in. So we must encourage laity leadership. The church leaders themselves saw it. That was why they set up Christian Social Movement of Nigeria, because it is based on laity, not on clergy. So we are drawing people, Christian professionals, Christian elites, to come and let us build Christian unity. That is roadmap number 3. Roadmap number 4, within the time that is allotted to me, we must mobilize central purse. Without money, we can do nothing. No matter how zealous we are, no matter how passionate we are, no matter how concerned and burdened we are, if we cannot fund our programs, if we cannot fund Christian candidates, we are joking. We are not going anywhere. This is not preaching prosperity. This is the reality. Even to build the tabernacle in the wilderness, the first thing God told Moses was to go and gather resources. So we started doing that in 2014. Again, our church leaders did not understand. We set up the Can Trust Fund in 2014 with the intention of raising 5 billion naira a month, which can easily be done in the Nigerian church. We worked it out. 60 billion naira per annum. Part of the plan is to fund Christian political candidates. Today, Christians are complaining. Don't we have Christian senators? Don't we have Christians in the House of Rep? What are they doing? What are they doing? What do you want them to do? Did you put them there? Did you fund them? Did you give them money to campaign? After the election, when they went to court, did you pay their lawyer? If you did not sponsor the man there, then who sponsored him? He who pays the piper dictates the tune. The church leaders sat on the Can Trust Fund. Like I mentioned, in 3 years, we lost 180 billion naira in expected revenue from the Can Trust Fund. When the National Christian Elders Forum got tired and the genocide that has started is now escalating. A few days ago, you probably will have read it, NCF wrote to the president of CAN, wrote to the heads of the 5 blocks, and retrieved the trust fund. We are starting it afresh now as Lay Faithful Trust Fund, so that we can encourage Christians in Nigeria. Let's begin to contribute money, because if you don't sponsor the senator, you cannot control him when he gets to the Senate. You cannot tell him to take on a Christian agenda. It's not possible. The people who put him there, they will tell him what to say and what to vote, and he has to do it. You cannot control any honorable in the House of Representatives. So Christians need to understand these issues. We need to begin to pass it on that, look, this is not somebody trying to steal your money. We are fighting for our survival now, because Sharia does not tolerate democracy. Sharia does not want to see Christianity. And you're already seeing it happening up north. And if people think that it will stop there, it is coming down. You're already seeing the signs. So we cannot afford to become careless and presumptuous. I will stop there. I will just mention the 2 points, because Pastor Edwin gave me 45 minutes. I just mentioned the 2 points. And number 5, we must get to the Christian traditional rulers. We must engage Christian traditional rulers, because they control the grassroots. And then, number 6, There must be regular collaborative meetings. We are going to work closely with CRMPA. We are going to identify other Christian groups. We are going to work closely with them, because all of us have to collaborate so that eventually we can form consensus. During the next election, if God helps us in Nigeria, there is an election, and we pray there will be, we will overcome this one by the grace of God. Christians should not present multiple candidates. Like we did in 2019, we shot ourselves in the leg. The Muslims presented only 2 candidates, and the 2 candidates took the 2 major parties. Christians had over 60 presidential candidates. 60. Which meant we divided the Christian vote, the Christian resources, the Christian energies into 60 different pieces. How are you going to make any impact at the polls? What we needed was consensus. And we were going to work on the consensus. We had fixed the date. We had already met with some of the presidential candidates, National Christian Elders Forum, and they had given us the mandate to endorse one of them. And our church leaders, who didn't understand what is going on, they thought they were playing politics, and they scattered everything. That's how this man was able to come back. So we need education. We need a lot of enlightenment, and we need a lot of engagement. But they are not things that we will do in one day. We can outline the roadmap, and gradually, by the grace of God, we shall begin to implement everything. I want to thank you very much for your attention. My time is up. I've taken 4 minutes extra. I apologize for that. But thank you very much. I will be stopping at this point. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I once again want to, on behalf of CRMPA, appreciate your time and the very